Well, this story certainly has had social media abuzz this week. The SAPS and the IPID say they are investigating the alleged shooting of an off-duty JMPD official by a police officer in Bromfontein outside a popular nightclub in the early hours of this morning, around Monday morning rather. In a video doing the rounds on social media, two officers are seen arguing in the street before one opens fire and shoots the other. But what does the law actually say about how police officers use their weapons when off duty? To answer that, and also trends that we see around guns and the SAPS off duty, we are joined via Zoom by Adele Kirsten of Gun Free South Africa. Adele, a good afternoon to you, or good morning rather. Thank you so much for giving us your time in this very important discussion.
Good morning, Naledi.
Yeah, it certainly was, I think, a horrific video for many South Africans to watch when you saw these two officers arguing in the street, one firing what looks something like 6 bullets into the other's body. Horrifying visuals. Can we start first with just really setting the picture of what the law actually says, first things first, about what police do with their weapons when they are off duty, Adele?
The law allows police officers to take their firearms home. And I guess the law would apply to them whether they are off or on duty, as it would apply to any citizen. And one is that your weapon is partly concealed in a holster on your body. You are not allowed to point your firearm at anyone, discharge it in a public area, and certainly waving it around like the JMPD officer was doing is an offence under the law. It's irresponsible and it creates an opportunity for the kind of violence and outcome that we saw. But it's also very clear that, and this is under the Criminal Procedure Act as well, that you may not use your weapon in self-defense unless your life is in direct danger. The law is very clear about that. And also, I mean, police officers generally should be trained around de-escalating these kinds of conflicts. So here we have two law enforcement officers who were in clear breach of the law and appeared unable to de-escalate this conflict and argument. Yeah. And importantly to add is we see in our crime stats is that every time crime stats are released, so one of the majority of murders are caused as a result of arguments, misunderstandings, etc. So I think this is a common, unfortunately, scenario in South Africa.
I think what's really concerning is how you talk about two officials that should be trained to de-escalate a situation, unable to de-escalate their own. But I want to talk a little bit about what the numbers are really telling us, particularly, Adele, around gun violence with police particularly. So I don't want to necessarily talk about within our own communities, because that already is a big enough problem. But what's your understanding around, I suppose, even the education of firearm handling that is necessary still for our JMPD and SAPS officials, and also just how some of them are falling victims to gun violence themselves?
Now, Lady Gun Free South Africa's position is that it really is in the interest of police officers, law enforcement officials and their families that they do not take home their service pistol. And this is because there's evidence that shows that it puts them at risk at a number of levels. One is the data shows that more police officers are killed off duty than on duty. So, for example, the latest figures that are available from 2017 is that in that year, 83 police officers were killed, 49 of them were killed when off duty. And of course, the gun is almost always removed from him in that instance. So that's a big risk. Yeah. But the other risk is suicide. And then, of course, the one where police officers kill their wife or girlfriend and then kill themselves. And this has become a really worrying trend, something that we know the trade unions are concerned about. And yet again, we don't see any clear intervention about how to reduce the risk of this happening. And of course, not having the gun would be the most effective.
Yeah, that really puts us in between a rock and a hard place. But we say, well, police officials without guns, and then, of course, the risk that we run into. I'm out of time, Adele, but if you will, perhaps, and I know you've done a lot of research into this, particularly on gun violence with our police officials, what are the recommendations that you then put on the table, whether it be for the National Police Department heads as what they need to be doing to deal with the matter, or is it a legislative issue?
I think we definitely need more understanding of what the risks are, what the constraints are. Obviously, there's a sense that cops are on duty 24/7, which I think is a misunderstanding of what's required. But you don't need a gun in order to intervene in a crime situation. So I think we know the trade unions are concerned about this. We know the ministry is concerned about this. Certainly, civil society organizations and communities are concerned about this. So I think we need more research to understand, what are the circumstances under which cops are being killed, whether on or off duty, and we need to be looking at what are the interventions that are going to help. So I think we need more research, we need more conversation, and then we need to move to some quick interventions and then some longer term interventions. Yeah. And of course, considering, not taking your gun home would be something that Gun Free would want to put on the table, certainly.
Yeah. Adele, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Adele Kirsten there speaking to us via Zoom from Gun Free South Africa.